video is going to wrap up our series on the 2020 US Senior Invitational and our journey with National Master Eric Cooke. And I got to say that both of us were surprised and pleased that in all 4 games that Eric played, he either got our very first choice preparation line or our secondary line in all the games. And I just love when a plan comes together. And when we were doing research on Eric's 6th round opponent, we found that he likes to play for a win with black. He's an aggressive player. And the number one choice that he had in his online games was playing this counter gambit stuff, and that's not what happened here. We spent the most time preparing this, but his secondary system, I gave Eric a few ideas, and he was able to use it quite effectively. And as a note, what I recommend to play against this is DE, Knight F3, and then this key move, A3. You'll want to look into that. Stops any of this Bishop B4 check nonsense, and Rook seemed to like it too in one of his previous texts. So that's what I'd look into against that. But that is for another video. D4, F5, we get ourselves a Dutch. And Eric's opponent is a classical Dutch man. So we're going to get straight to the key position. And right here is the snapshot. When you think of the classical Dutch, this is the image you should have in your mind. And really, there is only 3 lines you need to be aware of in order to play this at a very high level for white. And I've had students pair the French and Dutch. I mean, when I write a book, Master the French Defense, typically I'm going to have some students play it too. It's good analysis, why not? And they like playing 1e6 against everything. You can do that Simon Williams style with the classical Dutch and French. They go hand in hand. And it's better to play the Dutch from a 1e6 move order because you can find all sorts of nasty anti-Dutch lines from the immediate d4, f5 like we've seen in this game. But Eric wanted to go with the straightforward, and let's get into these ideas. So black played one of, in my opinion, the 2 critical moves, even though there's 3 lines here that are frequently played. He played a5 in the game. We'll save that for last. So the first line, and this is the one that Simon Williams recommended in his recent Dutch book, knight e4. And I feel we should face it in the most critical way, which is knight takes, knight d2, and then go f3. And the jury's not really still out in this position. White gets a slight edge. Pretty much straightforward stuff. Coming back, queen e8. Now, I showed Eric this specific idea, and he used a similar version in the game, but black did not react well to it. Queen e8 is signifying that I want to bring the queen to h5 and have some kind of all-out attack on the white king. And they normally need to play e5 and e4 at a certain point to try to shut down this bishop and get this knight to move, so the attack is going to be that much stronger. So that's the normal plan in this position. So understanding the plan, we're going to break it down. b3, we're going to get the bishop developed, and now the key move, bishop a3. This is the memory marker, because e5 is going to be a big problem. You can see a move like a5. This is natural enough, but here is the key that goes along with bishop a3, d5. Because if they play e5, we have the nasty knight takes e5 working the pin on this bishop. So that's how I recommend facing queen e8, but it does not work as well after a5 immediately and queen e8. Eric went with the idea anyway, but what I recommended here was bishop b2, knight a6, rook e1, and this position does very, very well for white in the database because you have this backward pawn that you're going to have to deal with in the long term, and black's minor pieces are a bit awkward. But Eric went with bishop a3, hoping for the same kind of idea. And I feel like black just probably played a little bit too quickly, or this is a secondary system and he doesn't know it theoretically as well as he should. So the move that you really need to play here is knight a6. And the idea is you want to shut this bishop down by sinking the knight into b4. And this is dynamic equality. White's going to have to admit wrongdoing, put the bishop back, kick the knight, and you get a game. But in the main game, knight c6 was played, and this changes things. You can't just easily go to b4, and Eric finds the right moment to strike in the center with d5. And from this point, I was analyzing with another player. We were looking at the game while Eric was playing, and I felt that without the ability to play e5 in the long term and get, aggressive play in the center, this is already a busted structure for black. White just needs to play accurately here. I mean, I'm one of those people, I really don't care what the engine says. When I see a position, you can have equal material, but it's difficult to find a practical plan. I know that's going to mean many, many bad things in the future for the player who can't find an easy plan. So after e takes, knight takes, important to have that knight on the strong square. We're already threatening knight takes c7 with the big fork. So bishop d8 needs to happen, preserving the bishop pair as the position opens up. And now it's a question of technique here. So at this point, Eric played rook c1 in the main game. I'd recommend going bishop b2, just getting that bishop on this very strong open diagonal now. And if he tries to shut it down, we're going to get this type of maneuver that we'll see in the main game later. The only real counterplay black could potentially have is on the king side. This really shuts it down with this type of play, and white just has absolutely no problems. Rook c1 was played, which is completely fine. Knight e4 and e3, a good move, just overprotecting f4, no attack. And on bishop e6, queen d3 was played, which is a reasonable move. I like knight d2 a little bit better, as you get this kind of an explosion, and then you're having the e-pawn as an issue, the open rook file pressuring c7. I'll give up the a-pawn. You can bother yourself with that while I'm hitting you in the center. So queen d3 in the main game. And after queen f7, we don't want to allow a capture that is going to end up having a pawn on d5. So for instance, bishop takes, pawn takes, because that pawn is going to be a bone in the throat for us. We can't get to potential weaknesses. So knight f4, avoiding that capture. Knight d4, really pressuring that e6 bishop. Giving a little tickle to the queen there, so she needs to protect herself. Bishop d7. And here, Eric missed a tactical opportunity, which is rare for him. Knight takes f5 with the ability to play bishop e4, and this is just much better for white. But his move again, reasonable. Any move that doesn't lose the advantage, I consider well within normal range and reasonable. We can't play like engines, and hindsight is always 20/20. And so hopefully none of my annotations are taken as do this instead. At the end of the day, it's who wins. c6, and that weakens the d6 pawn some. But we need to diffuse this attack, or potential attack, that black has. So knight f3, hitting that knight in the center again. Black adds some extra defense there. And the f rook is needed for defense on the king side. We don't want to worry about something like knight g4 if we were to move the other rook. So this rook simply improves itself, keeping an eye on this weak d6 pawn. knight c5, and we want to consider that that could be a possibility at some point, and black tries to break through. So h4, nice prophylactic move. Queen e8, and now things are starting to really come together for white. It's time for liquidation. And takes, rook d3, and we see the power of this open file, and the reason we never wanted a piece, or should I say a pawn, to get to d5. We have full control over the only open file on the board, and the rooks are making their presence known. After knight f6, rook d6, all the pressure, c5, anchoring the rook, and also, this is a great move for the endgame. It fixes the pawns on the same color as our bishop, as well as his, which makes our bishop stronger and his weaker at the same time. You love to see this type of fixing of the structure. But as we fix the structure, we get more pawns on the same color of his bishop, weakening it, and our knight cannot be kicked out of f4. So, knight versus bishop, this is a trivial win at this point. Every white piece is better than its counterpart, and black is uncoordinated. And this is what you want to see if you got equal pieces on the board. Rook 1 d4, giving just a little bit more pressure to e4, forcing defense. And now we're just improving pieces, getting everyone invited to the party. Queen c3, little stutter step, and now h5. Just seeing if we can get you to where we need to be. And after queen e5, Eric is not going to miss another tactic. h6, provoking g5, and rook d8, where black resigns. Nothing doing here. The best move, according to the engine, is bishop d7, where you have to just give up the piece here. But if king g8, for instance, you have the strong rook takes, and rook d8 with the big discovery on the queen. And that's all she wrote for the senior. And overall, Eric represented our great state quite well with an overall 9th place finish. And had he had that half point from the Mazda explosion that prevented him from playing that game, he potentially could have tied for 2nd place overall. So, not bad. Eric's in a big tie there. I believe 7th through, say, 10th or 11th all had 4 points. Great tournament for Eric. He really showcased his tactical prowess and shows age is just a number when we're talking about chess. If you're working hard on your game, you stay creative, you stay active, you can still hit hard. Eric played great chess, and happy to be able to share this with you guys. Thanks.